A broke single mom mistakenly texts a billionaire for baby food money. What happens next? I don't want your pity. Then what do you want? I want my daughter to stop crying because she's hungry. I want to stop choosing between diapers and electricity. I want to feel like I'm not drowning every single day. Then let me help you. You don't even know me. I know enough. That conversation happened at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night between a broke single mother standing in a dark kitchen with an empty formula can in her hand and a billionaire sitting alone in a penthouse across the city who hadn't felt anything real in 5 years. She didn't mean to text him. She didn't even know who he was. But that one wrong number, that one desperate message sent to a stranger by mistake, became the beginning of a love story that would change both their lives forever. And before we go any further, let me tell you something. This story will make you believe in second chances. It will make you believe that sometimes the worst moments in our lives are actually the doorways to the best chapters we never saw coming. So if you're someone who's ever felt invisible, who's ever been one bill away from breaking, who's ever wondered if anyone out there still cares, this story is for you. Stay with me, because what happens next will restore your faith in everything. Within 10 minutes, her entire life would change. Before we continue, if you're someone who believes in second chances, unexpected miracles, and the power of a single moment to change everything, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single word of this. Delilah Winters didn't plan to ask for help. She had survived 28 years on this planet mostly by not asking for anything from anyone. Growing up in foster care taught her that. You learned quickly that the people who promised to show up usually didn't. So you stopped expecting them to. You stopped asking. You just handled it. Even when handling it meant going without. Even when handling it meant your stomach cramped from hunger while you smiled through a school presentation. Even when handling it meant wearing shoes 2 sizes too small because you didn't want to be a burden. Delilah had learned early that being a burden meant being left behind, so she became the girl who never asked, the woman who never needed, the mother who would give her last breath before she let her daughter feel the kind of hunger she had known. But tonight, that resolve was cracking. It was 11:32 p.m., and the apartment was dark, not mood lighting dark, not romantic dark. It was the kind of dark that came when the electric company didn't care about your sob story, the kind of dark that made you realize how far you'd fallen. Delilah sat on the kitchen floor with her back pressed against the cabinet, her knees pulled up to her chest. The linoleum was cold beneath her. The air smelled faintly of mildew and old takeout she couldn't afford to replace. From the bedroom, she could hear Zoe crying. Not the angry cry, not the tantrum cry, the weak, tired, hungry cry that made Delilah's chest feel like it was caving in. Zoe was 16 months old. She had her mother's dark curls and her father's light brown eyes, though Delilah tried not to think about that. Tried not to remember the man who'd promised forever and disappeared the moment the pregnancy test came back positive. He wasn't worth the space in her head. But Zoe was worth everything. And tonight, Delilah couldn't give her the one thing she needed most. The formula can sat on the counter, mocking her with its emptiness. She'd stretched the last of it as far as she could, mixing it with more water than the instructions allowed, trying to make it last just one more day until her paycheck cleared. But one more day felt impossible now. Zoe's cries grew softer, weaker, and that was worse than the screaming. Delilah pressed her palms against her eyes and tried not to cry. She had already cried 3 times today. Once in the walk-in freezer at the diner where she worked, once in her car after it stalled for the 4th time that week, and once in the bathroom of the clinic when they told her Zoe's routine checkup would cost $85 up front because her insurance had lapsed. She didn't have $85. She didn't have $8. Her bank account showed $4.17, and rent was already 2 weeks late. Her phone sat on the floor beside her, screen cracked in the corner from the time she'd dropped it in the parking lot and couldn't afford to fix it. She picked it up now, hands shaking. There was one person left. One person who might, maybe, possibly help. Her cousin, Trevor. They hadn't spoken in almost a year. Not since he made it very clear at a family funeral that Delilah's life choices weren't his problem. But pride didn't feed babies. And Delilah had run out of options 3 days ago. She scrolled through her contacts, found his name, and stared at it. Her thumb hovered. Her throat felt tight. Then Zoe cried again, softer, sadder, and Delilah broke. She started typing. "Trevor, I know I have no right to ask, but I need help. Zoe's out of formula and I don't get paid until Friday. Could you lend me $40? I swear I'll pay you back. Please." She read it twice. Hated every word. Hated herself for writing it. Then she closed her eyes and hit send. The message went through with a soft whoosh. Delilah set the phone down and dropped her forehead onto her knees. She didn't pray much anymore. Hadn't since she was 12 and realized God wasn't listening to foster kids who begged not to be moved again. But tonight, she whispered into the dark, "Please, just let him say yes, just this once." Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it so fast she almost dropped it. The reply was already there. One line, "I think you have the wrong number." Delilah's stomach dropped. She looked at the message thread, looked at the contact name, looked at the number. Her breath caught. She'd mistyped. 1 digit off. She didn't text Trevor. She texted a complete stranger. Oh God. Oh no. Her fingers flew across the screen. "I'm so sorry. Please ignore that. Wrong number." She locked the screen, tossed the phone onto the counter like it had burned her, and pressed both hands over her face. Of course that's how tonight would go. She couldn't even beg correctly. For a long moment, she just sat there in the suffocating silence, listening to Zoe's breathing even out in the next room. Maybe she'd finally fallen asleep. Maybe her tiny body had just given up waiting for food that wasn't coming. The thought made Delilah feel sick. Then her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look. Didn't want to see some stranger's annoyed response. Or worse, their pity. But something made her reach for it anyway. The message was short, simple, but it hit her like a freight train. "Is your baby going to be okay?" Delilah stared at the screen. Read it again. And again. Who asks that? What kind of stranger follows up on a misdirected message about a hungry child like they actually care? She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her thumbs moved on instinct. "We'll manage." "I'm sorry again." 3 dots appeared immediately. The stranger was typing. The reply came fast. "I can help. No strings." Delilah's chest tightened. She shook her head even though no one could see her. This was how scams worked. How predators worked. Some creep sees a desperate woman and swoops in like a hero. And then 6 months later you're trapped in something you can't escape. She typed back quickly. "Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers." The reply was almost instant. "Smart. I respect that. I'm Callum. Now I'm not a stranger." Despite everything, despite the exhaustion and fear and shame sitting heavy in her chest, Delilah felt the corner of her mouth twitch. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. She typed slowly. "I'm Delilah, and I still can't take your money." "Why not?" "Because I don't know you, and because nothing's ever free." "You're right. It's not free. I'm asking something in return." Her guard went up instantly. She should have known. "Here it comes. What do you want?" "I want you to let me help." That's it. Delilah sat back against the cabinet, phone trembling in her hand. That didn't make sense. People didn't just do that. Didn't just offer help without wanting something back. Her instincts screamed at her to block the number, delete the thread, pretend this never happened. But then Zoe whimpered from the other room, and Delilah's resolve crumbled. Her fingers moved before her brain could stop them. She opened her payment app, the one she used maybe twice a year when someone sent her birthday money. She typed out her username and sent it in the chat. "If you're serious, here, but I'm paying you back." She didn't expect him to actually do it. She expected silence, or a lecture, or some gross request that would make her regret everything. What she didn't expect was for her phone to buzz 30 seconds later with a notification. Payment received, $5,000, from Callum Ashford. Delilah's entire body went cold. She opened the app with shaking hands, convinced it was a glitch. It wasn't. The money was there. Real. Sitting in her account like it had always belonged to her. $5,000. She'd asked for 40. Her hands started trembling so hard she almost dropped the phone. She typed through blurred vision. "This is too much. I only needed 40. His reply was calm. "I know. Keep it. One less thing to worry about." She read the message 3 times and then the tears came. Not quiet tears, not dignified tears. She sobbed into her hands, shoulders shaking, breath ragged and uneven. She cried for every missed meal, every overdue bill, every night she'd lain awake wondering how much longer she could keep pretending she had it together. She cried because for the first time in 16 months, she didn't have to choose between feeding her baby and keeping the lights on. She cried because a stranger had seen her, actually seen her, and hadn't looked away. When she could finally breathe again, she picked up her phone and typed the only words that felt even close to enough. "Thank you. I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just take care of Zoe." Delilah froze. Her heart skipped. She stared at the message, reading it over and over. She never told him her daughter's name. Slowly, carefully, she typed back. A pause, then his reply. "You mentioned her in the first message." Delilah scrolled back up. Read her original text. He was right. She had. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by suspicion. Who was this man? Why did he have $5,000 to give away like it was nothing? And why her? She typed carefully. "Who are you really?" There was a longer pause this time. Then finally, a reply. "Someone who knows what it's like to lose everything, and someone who wishes more people had helped when I needed it." Delilah sat in the dark, her daughter finally quiet in the next room, a stranger's kindness sitting heavy in her chest. She didn't know what happened next. Didn't know if this was real, or a dream, or the beginning of something she'd regret. But for the first time in a long time, she let herself hope, and that terrified her more than anything. Can you imagine what that moment must have felt like? To be at your lowest, and have a stranger, not a friend, not family, show up when no one else did. If this story is touching your heart already, drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever experienced unexpected kindness when you needed it most? Let's share some hope in the comments. Callum Ashford hadn't meant to answer the text. He never answered messages from numbers he didn't recognize. His personal phone was sacred. Locked down. Only 12 people in the world had that number, and half of them were dead or no longer speaking to him. But that night, he'd been sitting in his penthouse office staring at nothing, the weight of silence pressing down on him like a physical thing. The walls were glass. The view was Manhattan, 53 floors above the noise and chaos, where everything looked small and manageable and far away. He preferred it that way. Distance made things easier. Distance kept him from feeling too much. His laptop sat open in front of him, spreadsheets glowing in the dim light. Revenue projections, acquisition proposals, market forecasts, numbers that used to mean everything and now meant nothing at all. He'd built an empire. Ashford Industries was valued at $18 billion. He owned patents that had revolutionized medical technology. He employed 14,000 people across 6 countries, and he would have traded every cent, every accolade, every success, to go back 5 years and change one single day. The day he lost everything that mattered. His phone had buzzed at 11:34 p.m. He'd glanced at it out of habit, expecting spam. What he saw instead made him pause. "Trevor, I know I have no right to ask, but I need help. Zoe's out of formula, and I don't get paid until Friday. Could you lend me $40? I swear I'll pay you back." "Please." Callum read it twice. It wasn't spam. It wasn't a scam. It was desperation in text form. Raw, honest, unbearably real. He should have ignored it. Should have deleted it and gone back to pretending work mattered. But something in those words caught him. Zoe's out of formula. A baby. Someone's child was going hungry, and a mother was begging a stranger for $40. Not 400, not 4,000, 40, the kind of amount that shouldn't break someone but clearly did. His fingers moved before his brain caught up. "I think you have the wrong number." He sent it and immediately regretted it. That was cold. Dismissive. He stared at the screen, waiting for the inevitable apology, the awkward backpedaling. It came fast. "I'm so sorry. Please ignore that. Wrong number." He should have left it there. Should have put the phone down and forgotten the whole thing. But he didn't. Instead, he typed something he hadn't planned to say. Is your baby going to be okay? The reply took longer this time. We'll manage. I'm sorry again. Callum leaned back in his chair, jaw tight. We'll manage. That's what people said when they had no other choice. When manage meant going without. When manage meant suffering in silence because no one cared enough to ask. He knew that language. He'd spoken it himself once, a lifetime ago, before the money and the success and the emptiness, before he became the kind of man people asked things from but never asked about. He typed quickly, decisively, I can help, no strings. Her response was immediate and exactly what he expected. Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers. Smart. He respected that. Respected her. Most people would have taken the offer without question, but she had boundaries. Pride, the kind of strength that came from surviving things that should have broken you. He smiled faintly. It was the first real expression his face had made in days. Smart. I respect that. I'm Callum. Now I'm not a stranger. He waited. Watched the 3 dots appear and disappear. Appear again. I'm Delilah, and I still can't take your money. He sat forward, elbows on the desk, fully engaged now in a way he hadn't been in anything for months. Why not? Because I don't know you, and because nothing's ever free. She was right. Nothing was ever free. Every transaction had a cost. Every relationship had conditions. That's how the world worked. That's what he'd learned the hard way. But maybe, just this once, it didn't have to. You're right. It's not free. I'm asking something in return. He could almost feel her hesitation through the screen. What do you want? I want you to let me help. That's it. He didn't know why he said it. Didn't know why this stranger's pain had cracked something open inside him that he'd sealed shut years ago, but it had. And, for the first time in 5 years, Callum Ashford felt something other than numb. A long pause. Then she sent her payment information. He didn't hesitate. Opened his banking app and transferred $5,000 in 3 taps. It was nothing to him. Less than nothing. He spent more than that on a single dinner he didn't eat. But to her, he knew it was everything. Her reply came moments later, shaky and small. This is too much. I only needed 40. He typed back instantly. I know. Keep it. One less thing to worry about. He imagined her on the other side of the screen, maybe sitting on the floor, maybe crying, maybe holding her daughter and finally breathing for the first time in days. The thought didn't make him feel good exactly, but it made him feel something, and that was more than he'd felt in a long time. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just take care of Zoe. He set the phone down and stared out at the city. The lights glittered coldly, indifferent and distant. Somewhere out there, a woman he'd never met was probably crying, and a baby he'd never see was going to eat tonight. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was enough for now. Callum stood and walked to the far wall of his office where a single photograph hung in a slim black frame. It was the only personal item in the entire room. The only thing he allowed himself to look at when the silence got too loud. The photo was small, a hospital room. A woman with dark hair and exhausted eyes holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blue. She was smiling. Callum stood beside her, younger, hopeful, his hand on her shoulder. They looked happy. They had no idea they had 6 days left. 6 days before their son's lungs gave out. 6 days before the monitors went silent. 6 days before Callum's entire world collapsed and his wife walked out, unable to look at him without seeing everything they'd lost. He touched the edge of the frame lightly, then let his hand drop. Zoe's out of formula. That message had triggered something in him, something he'd buried deep. Grief, guilt, the unbearable weight of not being able to save the people you loved. But tonight, he'd done something small, something real. He'd helped a mother keep her child fed. And maybe, in some impossible way, that mattered. His phone buzzed again. He picked it up, expecting nothing. But Delilah had sent another message. Who are you really? Callum stared at the question. He could tell her the truth. CEO, billionaire, widower, A man who built empires and lost everything that mattered. Or he could tell her something simpler, something true in a different way. He typed slowly. Someone who knows what it's like to lose everything. And someone who wishes more people had helped when I needed it. He hit send and waited. No reply came. That was fine. He didn't need one. He'd done what he set out to do. But as he stood there in the silence of his too big office with his too empty life, Callum Ashford realized something startling. For the first time in 5 years, he didn't feel completely alone. And it was because of a wrong number. A mistake. A message that was never meant for him. Maybe, he thought, the best things in life weren't planned. Maybe they just happened when you were brave enough to answer. Delilah woke up the next morning convinced it had all been a dream. The kind of cruel dream your brain conjures when you're too exhausted to function. The kind where you win the lottery or find money in your coat pocket, only to wake up and realize you're still broke. But when she checked her phone, the money was still there. $5,000. Real. Untouched. Waiting. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake Zoe, who was still asleep beside her in the bed they shared. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains, pale and gray. For a moment, Delilah just stared at her phone screen, reading the number over and over like it might vanish if she blinked. It didn't. She opened the message thread, scrolled through the conversation from the night before. It still felt surreal. A stranger named Callum had sent her $5,000 because she'd asked for 40. No conditions, no demands, just help. She didn't know what to do with that. Her whole life, help had come with strings. Foster parents who wanted the state check. Boyfriends who wanted something in return. Bosses who wanted her silence. But this felt different. Or maybe she was just desperate enough to believe it was. Her phone buzzed. A new message. From him. Morning. I hope Zoe slept better. Delilah's breath caught. She stared at the message, thumbs hovering over the keyboard. She didn't know how to respond. Didn't know what the rules were for thanking a stranger who'd just changed your life. She typed carefully. She did. Because of you. Thank you again. I still don't know how to process this. You don't have to process it. Just use it. Take care of yourself. Take care of her. Delilah bit her lip. She wanted to ask more. Wanted to know who he was. Why he'd done this. What he wanted from her. But she was afraid of the answers. Afraid that if she pushed, the illusion would shatter and she'd be right back where she started. Instead, she typed something safer. Can I ask what you do? There was a pause, longer than before. Then his reply. I run a tech company. We focus on medical software and data integration. It's not as boring as it sounds. Delilah raised her eyebrows. A tech company. That explained the money. She typed back. Sounds impressive. It pays the bills. What about you? What do you do? She hesitated. Her job wasn't impressive. It wasn't even stable. She was a waitress at a diner that could barely afford to stay open. Before that, she'd been a nurse. A good one. But after Zoe was born and her ex disappeared, she couldn't keep up with the shift work and the childcare costs and the exhaustion. So she'd quit. Taken the first job that would let her work nights when her neighbor could watch Zoe. It wasn't a career. It was survival. She typed honestly. I work at a diner, but I used to be a nurse. Before everything got complicated. Why'd you stop? Delilah closed her eyes. Because I couldn't afford daycare and work 12-hour shifts and keep my daughter alive all at the same time. Something had to give. She sent it before she could second-guess herself. His response came quickly. That's not failure. That's sacrifice. She stared at the words, throat tight. No one had ever said that to her before. Everyone else, her family, her ex, even some of the other nurses, had made her feel like quitting was weakness, like she'd given up. But Callum called it sacrifice. And somehow, that made all the difference. Thank you for saying that. It's the truth. Then, after a pause, another message. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you miss it? Nursing. Delilah looked over at Zoe, still fast asleep, her little hand curled into a fist near her face. She thought about the hospital. The long shifts. The patients who thanked her. The feeling of doing something that mattered, every day. But I couldn't do both, and she needed me more. He didn't reply right away. When he did, the message was short but heavy. I understand that more than you know. Delilah wanted to ask what he meant, wanted to dig deeper, but something in the way he said it made her pull back. Some pain was too private to pry into. She changed the subject. So what does a tech CEO do at 7 in the morning? Work, probably. Same thing I do at 7 at night. Do you ever stop? Not really. Delilah frowned. That sounds lonely. It is. She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to comfort a man she'd never met. So she just sent back something simple. Well, if you ever need someone to talk to who isn't a spreadsheet, I'm around. His reply was almost instant. I might take you up on that. Over the next 2 weeks, they texted every day. It started small. Good morning messages. How's Zoe? How's work? But slowly, it grew into something more. Callum asked questions. Real questions, not small talk. He wanted to know what Delilah's favorite book was, what she missed most about nursing, what she dreamed about when she let herself dream. And Delilah, who hadn't talked to anyone about anything real in months, found herself answering. She told him about the patients she remembered, the little boy with leukemia who'd made her a bracelet out of hospital bands, the elderly woman who held her hand during her last breath and thanked her for not leaving. She told him about Zoe's first laugh, her first word, the way she looked at Delilah like she was the whole world. And Callum listened. He didn't just read her messages and move on. He responded with thought, with care, with pieces of himself he didn't seem to share often. He told her about losing his son, about the 6 days he'd had with him before the machine stopped, about his wife leaving because she couldn't look at him without seeing everything they'd lost. He told her about building his company as a distraction, about throwing himself into work because it was easier than facing the silence. He told her he hadn't felt connected to another human being in 5 years. Until now, Delilah sat on her couch one night, Zoe asleep in her crib, phone glowing in her hand. She read his last message again. You're the first person in 5 years I've wanted to talk to. Her chest ached. She typed slowly, carefully. You're the first person who made me feel like I'm more than just surviving. She hit send and waited. His reply came a minute later. You are more than surviving, Delilah. You're extraordinary. And you don't even see it, she cried. Right there on the couch, in the dark, she cried. Not from sadness, from relief, from being seen, from mattering to someone. 3 days later, Callum sent her a message that changed everything. I have a proposition for you. Delilah's stomach flipped. Here it comes, she thought. The catch, the condition, the thing he'd been waiting to ask for. She typed carefully. What kind of proposition? I need someone I trust to review some financial data for my company. You have a background in detailed analysis from nursing. I think you'd be good at it. It's remote, flexible hours, and it pays well. Delilah stared at the message. That wasn't what she expected. You want to hire me? If you're interested, no pressure. But yes, I think you'd be an asset. Why me? Because I trust you. And trust is worth more than experience. She sat back, phone in her lap, heart pounding. This was real. He was offering her a job, a real job, one she could do from home, one that paid. She thought about the diner, the grease stains on her uniform, the customers who didn't tip, the manager who looked at her like she was disposable. Then she thought about Zoe, about being home with her, about not having to leave her with a neighbor who charged by the hour. She picked up her phone. Okay, I'm in. Good. I'll send the details tomorrow. And Delilah, yeah, thank you for trusting me. She smiled, small and genuine. Thank you for seeing me. That night, Delilah lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Zoe's soft breathing filling the quiet. A month ago, she'd been one missed paycheck away from losing everything. Now, she had $5,000 in her account, a job offer, and a man she'd never met who somehow made her feel like she wasn't invisible. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. And she had no idea what came next. But for the first time in a long time, she was excited to find out. This is where it starts to get deeper, friends. If you're feeling the connection between these two broken people finding light in each other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because what's coming next is going to test everything they're building. You won't want to miss it. Delilah started working for Callum the following Monday. He'd sent over the files late Sunday night, clean spreadsheets, transaction logs, vendor records, and a simple note. No rush. Just look for anything that doesn't feel right. She didn't know what she was looking for exactly. She wasn't an accountant, but nursing had taught her to notice patterns, to spot inconsistencies, to trust her gut when something didn't add up. And as she scrolled through the data, something definitely didn't add up. It started small, a recurring vendor payment. Elliston Medical Supply. The amounts weren't huge, $12,000 here, $18,000 there. But the frequency was odd. Weekly payments for supplies that didn't match up with any corresponding project codes. Delilah cross-referenced the logs. She opened another file Callum had sent, a master list of active projects and their associated costs. Elliston Medical Supply wasn't tied to any of them. She frowned, opened a new browser tab, and searched the company name. The website looked legitimate at first glance. Clean design, medical imagery, corporate language. But when she clicked on the contact page, there was no phone number, no physical address. Just a generic email. Red flag. She dug deeper. Searched the business registration. Found the LLC filing. It was registered in Delaware, which wasn't unusual for companies trying to minimize taxes. But the listed agent was a law firm that specialized in anonymous corporate structures. Another red flag. Delilah sat back, chewing her bottom lip. This could be nothing. Maybe it was a legitimate vendor using a privacy service. Or maybe it was something else. She copied the vendor name and transaction dates into a separate document. Then she kept digging. Over the next 3 days, she found 4 more vendors with the same pattern. Different names, different amounts, but all of them had the same traits. No verifiable contact information. Delaware LLCs. Payments that didn't align with internal projects. And all of them had been approved by the same person. Dominic Hale, Chief Operating Officer. Callum's second in command. Delilah's stomach twisted. She didn't want to be right about this. Didn't want to find something that would hurt Callum. But the numbers didn't lie. Someone was siphoning money out of Ashford Industries, and it looked like it was someone Callum trusted. She stared at her screen for a long time, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then she opened her messages. Callum, I need to talk to you. It's about the files. His reply came within 2 minutes. What did you find? She hesitated. This wasn't something to say over text. This was bigger than that. Can we call? Her phone rang 10 seconds later. She answered on the second ring. Hello. Callum's voice was low, steady, but she could hear the tension underneath. Talk to me. What's wrong? Delilah took a breath. I found something, and I don't think you're going to like it. Tell me. There are vendor payments going out every week. Significant amounts, but none of them tie back to any active projects. I checked the companies. They're all shell corporations. No real addresses, no verifiable contacts, just legal fronts. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Callum's voice, quieter now. How much? Delilah glanced at her notes. So far, I've tracked over 2.3 million across the last 18 months, but I haven't finished reviewing everything yet. Silence. She could hear him breathing, controlled, measured. Callum, I'm sorry. Don't apologize. You did exactly what I needed you to do. Another pause. Who approved the payments? She swallowed hard. Dominic. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Delilah waited, phone pressed to her ear, heart pounding. When Callum finally spoke, his voice was ice. Send me everything you found. I will. But Callum, if this is real, if he's really doing this, we need to be careful. He'll know if you confront him directly. I'm not confronting him. I'm building a case. Delilah felt a chill run down her spine. She'd never heard him sound like this. Cold, detached, Dangerous. Are you okay? No, but I will be. Thank you, Delilah. I mean it. She wanted to say more, wanted to comfort him somehow, but she didn't know how. So she just said, I'm here. If you need me, I know. He hung up. Delilah sat in the quiet of her apartment, staring at her phone. Zoe was napping in the next room. The world outside her window looked normal, peaceful. But inside, everything had just shifted. She'd uncovered something ugly, something that was going to explode, and she had no idea what would happen next. That night, Callum didn't text, didn't call. For the first time in weeks, her phone stayed silent. Delilah tried not to worry, tried to tell herself he was just processing, but she couldn't shake the knot in her stomach, the feeling that she'd just lit a fuse, and all she could do now was wait for the blast. Delilah didn't hear from Callum for 3 days. 3 long, agonizing days where every notification made her heart jump, hoping it was him, but it never was. Just spam emails, appointment reminders, notifications from apps she never used. She tried to focus on Zoe, on work, on anything that would stop her from spiraling, but her mind kept circling back to the same thought. What if she'd made a mistake? What if she'd misread the data? What if Callum blamed her for dragging him into something that would tear his company apart? On the 4th day, her phone finally rang. Callum. She answered immediately. Hello. Delilah. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came before a storm. Are you okay? I need you to do something for me. Anything. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. I want you there. Her heart stopped. What? Why? Because you're the one who found this. And I need someone in that room I can trust. Callum, I'm not. I can't. I don't have any authority. I'm just... You're the only person who saw what everyone else missed. That makes you more qualified than half the people on my board. Please, I need you. Delilah closed her eyes. Her hands were shaking. She'd never been in a boardroom, never presented anything to anyone more important than a diner manager. But Callum was asking, and she couldn't say no. Okay, I'll be there. Thank you. He paused, and Delilah, yeah, this is going to get ugly. I need you to be ready. I'm ready. Good. I'll send a car for you at 8:30. He hung up before she could ask any more questions. Delilah sat on the edge of her bed, phone still in her hand, heart racing. Tomorrow, she was going to walk into a room full of executives and accuse one of them of stealing millions. She had no degree in finance, no corporate experience, no safety net, just the truth, and the trust of a man she'd never even met in person. God help me, she whispered into the empty room. The next morning, a black car pulled up outside her building at exactly 8:30. The driver, a woman in a sharp suit, stepped out and opened the door without a word. Delilah climbed in, clutching the folder with all her findings. She'd printed everything, highlighted the discrepancies, made notes in the margins. She'd stayed up until 3 a.m., making sure it was airtight. Zoe was with her neighbor, Mrs. Clary, a retired teacher who adored her and charged almost nothing. Delilah had left extra formula, extra snacks, and a number to call if anything went wrong. The drive into the city felt surreal. Delilah watched the buildings grow taller, the streets grow cleaner, the people grow sharper. This wasn't her world, but today she had to pretend it was. The car pulled up in front of a sleek glass tower, Ashford Industries. The logo was etched into the stone above the entrance, bold and unmistakable. Delilah stepped out, legs unsteady, and followed the driver inside. The lobby was all marble and steel. Security guards, elevators with key card access, people in expensive suits walking with purpose. Delilah felt like an imposter. The driver led her to a private elevator and swiped a card. The doors opened. Step inside. We're going to the 40th floor. Delilah obeyed. The elevator rose smoothly, silently. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished walls. She'd worn the only professional outfit she owned. A black blazer she'd bought at a thrift store. Gray slacks that were slightly too big. Flats that pinched her toes. She looked like she was playing dress-up. The elevator dinged, the doors opened, and there, standing in the hallway, was Callum Ashford. Delilah froze. She'd seen pictures online after that first night. She'd looked him up. Curious. Maybe a little scared. But pictures didn't do him justice. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair, silver at the temples, sharp jaw, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much and felt even more. He was wearing a charcoal suit, no tie, the top button undone. He looked exhausted, but when he saw her, something in his expression softened. Delilah. She stepped out of the elevator, heart in her throat. Hi. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides and stopped just short of touching her. For a moment, they just stood there, 2 people who'd shared their darkest fears over text messages but had never occupied the same room. Thank you for coming. She nodded, unable to find words. He glanced at the folder in her hands. You ready? As I'll ever be. He gave her a small, sad smile. Then let's go. The boardroom was massive, a long table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 8 people were already seated. Men and women in suits that cost more than Delilah's rent. They looked up when she entered, some curious, some annoyed. One man, seated near the head of the table, looked downright hostile. Dominic Hale. She recognized him from the employee directory she'd reviewed. Late 40s, perfectly tailored suit, cold eyes. He looked at her like she was an insect. Callum gestured to an empty chair near the center of the table. Delilah sat. He remained standing. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I know this is irregular, but we have a situation that requires immediate attention. A woman with steel gray hair and red lipstick leaned forward. What kind of situation? Callum didn't flinch. Financial misconduct. The room went still. Dominic's expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation, Callum. I hope you have evidence. Callum looked at Delilah. We do. Miss Winters, if you would. Delilah's mouth went dry. Every eye in the room turned to her. She opened the folder with trembling hands and pulled out the first page. Over the past 18 months, Ashford Industries has made recurring payments to 5 vendors that do not correspond to any active projects or internal requisitions. The total amount exceeds $2.3 million. Someone scoffed. Dominic leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. And who exactly are you? I'm a third-party analyst, mister. Ashford brought in to review financial records. Third party. Dominic's smile was sharp. You mean you're nobody? Callum's voice cut through the room like a blade. She's the person who found what your team missed. Or ignored. Dominic's smile faded. Delilah continued, forcing her voice to stay steady. Each of these vendors is a shell company. No verifiable employees. No listed assets. Payments were approved and processed through executive override. She slid a sheet across the table. All of them approved by you, Mr. Hale. The room erupted, voices overlapping. Shock, confusion, anger. Dominic stood, his face flushed. This is absurd. I've been with this company for 12 years. I've built half the infrastructure we run on. And you're going to believe some random woman off the street over me. Callum's voice was ice. I believe the data. And the data says you've been stealing from me. Dominic's jaw clenched. You're making a mistake. No. Callum stepped closer. You made the mistake. And now you're done. Dominic looked around the table, searching for allies. Some of the board members looked away. Others stared at the documents in front of them, silent. Finally, Dominic turned back to Callum. You can't prove intent. These could be clerical errors, vendor misfilings. You're reaching. Delilah spoke up, her voice stronger now. The payments were made on a scheduled basis, every 2 weeks, same day, same time. That's not a clerical error, that's a system. Dominic glared at her. You have no idea what you're talking about. Actually, she does. Callum's voice was quiet, deadly, and so do I. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and tossed it onto the table. That contains every transaction, every email, every approval chain. I've already shared it with our legal team and the state attorney's office. You're not just fired, Dominic. You're going to prison. The color drained from Dominic's face. He looked at Callum, at the board, at Delilah. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. The door slammed behind him. The room was silent. One of the board members, an older man with silver hair, cleared his throat. Callum, we need to discuss next steps. Containment, optics. Callum cut him off. Next steps are simple. Full internal audit, immediate policy reform. And anyone who knew about this and stayed silent can resign now or wait to be removed. No one spoke. Good. Meeting adjourned. The board members filed out slowly, whispering among themselves. Delilah sat frozen, hands still gripping the folder. Callum waited until the room was empty. Then he sat down beside her. You did it. She looked at him, eyes wide. I thought I was going to throw up. You didn't. You were perfect. She laughed, shaky and breathless. I've never been so scared in my life. He smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Welcome to my world. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she saw past the billionaire, past the CEO. She saw the man who'd answered a wrong number text, who'd sent $5,000 to a stranger, who'd trusted her when no one else would. Thank you. For what? For believing me. He held her gaze. I'll always believe you. And in that moment, sitting in an empty boardroom 40 floors above the city, Delilah realized something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She was falling for him. I don't know about you, but my heart is pounding right now. If you're rooting for Delilah and Callum, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think happens next. And subscribe, because we're only halfway through this story, and it's about to get even more emotional. After the board meeting, Callum was placed on temporary administrative leave, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because the optics mattered. The board wanted an independent review, wanted to make sure the company could survive the scandal without its CEO becoming the story. Callum didn't fight it. He was exhausted, burned out, and for the first time in years, he had a reason to step away. Her name was Delilah. 3 days after the meeting, he called her. Not texted, called. She answered on the first ring. Hey. There was a pause. Then he said, I have a weird question. Okay. Do you want to meet Zoe? Delilah's breath caught. You want to meet her? If that's okay. I know it's a lot. I'd like to. She smiled, tears prickling her eyes. I'd like that too. They met at a park. It was a Saturday morning, cool and clear. Delilah arrived first, pushing Zoe in a stroller. She spotted Callum standing near a bench, hands in his pockets, looking strangely nervous. He saw her and smiled. That same soft smile that made her chest ache. She walked over, heart racing. Callum crouched down to Zoe's level. Hey there, Zoe. Zoe looked at him with wide, curious eyes. Then she reached out and grabbed his finger. Callum laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Delilah had never heard him laugh before. Strong grip. Delilah grinned. She's determined. I wonder where she gets that. Callum stood, still holding Zoe's tiny hand. She's beautiful, Delilah. She looks just like you. Delilah's cheeks flushed. Thank you. They walked through the park together. Slow, easy, no pressure. Callum pushed the stroller. Delilah walked beside him. They talked about everything and nothing. Books, movies, childhood memories. Zoe babbled happily, pointing at birds and dogs and clouds. At one point, Callum stopped and looked at Delilah. I need to tell you something. She turned to him, suddenly nervous. Okay. I haven't felt this okay in 5 years. Not since I lost my son. But being here with you and Zoe, it feels like I can breathe again. Delilah's throat tightened. Callum, I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'm capable of this, of letting someone in, but I want to try, with you. She reached for his hand, laced her fingers through his. I'm scared too. Scared of trusting someone. Scared of getting hurt. But I think you're worth the risk. He looked down at their joined hands, then back at her. So what do? We take it slow. We figure it out together. He nodded. Together. They didn't kiss that day. Didn't rush. But something shifted. Something real and fragile and worth protecting. Over the next few weeks, Callum became part of their lives. He showed up. Not with money or gifts, though he tried, and Delilah shut him down every time. He showed up with time. With presence. He learned Zoe's bedtime routine, helped fold laundry, sat on the floor and played blocks while Delilah cooked dinner. He made her laugh, made her feel seen, made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to do this alone. One night, after Zoe had fallen asleep, they sat on Delilah's tiny balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. The city lights flickered in the distance. Delilah leaned her head on Callum's shoulder. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it? Answering my text. Callum was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to her, lifting her chin so she was looking at him. That text saved my life, Delilah. I was drowning. I didn't even realize it, but you pulled me out. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You saved mine first. He wiped her tears with his thumb. Then maybe we saved each other. And then, finally, he kissed her. Soft. Slow. Like he had all the time in the world. Like she was the only thing that mattered. When they pulled apart, Delilah whispered, I'm falling for you. Callum rested his forehead against hers. I already fell. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Delilah should have known it wouldn't last. It was a Thursday afternoon. She was at home with Zoe, folding laundry and humming along to a playlist Callum had made for her. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something made her answer. Hello. Is this Delilah Winters? Yes. Who is this? This is Craig Barton. I'm an attorney representing Dominic Hale. Delilah's blood went cold. What do you want? My client would like to speak with you regarding your testimony. I have nothing to say to him. Miss Winters, I'd advise you to reconsider. My client has information that could complicate your current situation. What are you talking about? Let's just say your past isn't as clean as you'd like people to believe. Her heart slammed against her ribs. What? I'm sure, mister. Ashford would be very interested to know about your DUI. And the custody case your ex-boyfriend tried to file. Delilah felt the room tilt. That was 6 years ago. I was cleared. Doesn't matter. Optics matter. And right now, you're the star witness in a very public case. How do you think it'll look when the media finds out the woman who took down a COO has her own legal troubles? You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice. Drop your testimony, and this stays private. Refuse, and it all comes out. She hung up. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. The DUI. God. She'd been 22. Struggling. Working 2 jobs and barely sleeping. She'd made a terrible mistake. Driven home after 2 drinks. Got pulled over. She'd gone to court. Done community service. It was expunged. But it had happened. And if Dominic's lawyer twisted it, made it public, she could lose everything. Her credibility, her job, Zoe. She called Callum. He answered immediately. Delilah, what's wrong? They're coming after me. Who? Dominic. His lawyer just called. He's threatening to expose things from my past if I don't drop my testimony. What things? She told him. Everything. The DUI. The custody scare. The fear that had lived in her chest for years, that someone would use her mistakes against her. When she finished, there was silence. Callum, say something. He finally spoke. His voice was low, dangerous. Where are you? Home. Stay there. I'm coming over. Callum, he's going to destroy me. No. Callum's voice was steel. He's not. He pulled her into his arms the moment she opened it. I'm not going to let him hurt you. He has leverage. No, he has desperation. There's a difference. He pulled back, holding her face in his hands. Listen to me. You made a mistake 6 years ago. You owned it. You paid for it. That doesn't define you. But what if? There's no what if. I'm calling my legal team. We're gonna bury this before it even starts. But the media, let them try. I'll make sure the only story that gets told is the truth. You're a mother who fought to survive, who uncovered a crime, who did the right thing. That's the story. She searched his eyes. Why are you doing this? Because I love you. The words hung in the air. Delilah's breath caught. He said it so simply, so certainly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You love me. I love you. I love Zoe. And I'm not letting anyone take you away from me. Tears streamed down her face. She kissed him, hard, desperate, grateful. When they pulled apart, she whispered, I love you too. Good, he smiled. Now let me handle this. And he did. Callum's legal team moved fast. They contacted Dominic's lawyer, made it clear that any attempt to smear Delilah would result in a countersuit for harassment and intimidation. They pulled records, proved the DUI had been expunged, showed that the custody case had been dismissed as baseless. Within 48 hours, Dominic's lawyer backed off. The threats stopped, and Delilah could breathe again. But the experience left a mark, a reminder that the past was never really gone. That safety was fragile. That loving someone meant trusting them to fight for you. And Callum had fought. He'd kept his promise. He'd protected her. And for the first time in her life, Delilah felt like she had a partner. Not a savior, a partner. This is getting intense. If you're on the edge of your seat, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because what happens next is going to leave you speechless. Dominic Hale didn't go quietly. 2 weeks after his lawyer's failed intimidation attempt, he filed a civil suit against Callum, against Ashford Industries, and against Delilah. He claimed defamation, wrongful termination, conspiracy. It was baseless. Everyone knew it. But it didn't matter. The lawsuit made headlines. Tech mogul accused of fraud by former COO, whistleblower under fire, single mother caught in corporate war. Delilah's name was everywhere. Her face was on blogs, in articles. Strangers were digging into her life, her past, her struggles. She couldn't go to the grocery store without feeling eyes on her. Callum tried to shield her, hired security, had his PR team spin the narrative. But the damage was done. The stress was crushing. Delilah barely slept, barely ate. She was terrified of losing Zoe, terrified of being exposed, terrified that everything she'd built would crumble. And then Dominic made his worst move yet. He filed an emergency motion, claiming that Delilah was an unfit mother, that her involvement in a corporate scandal put Zoe at risk, that she should lose custody. When Delilah read the filing, she collapsed. Callum found her on the floor, sobbing, the papers scattered around her. He pulled her into his arms and held her while she broke. I can't lose her. I can't. You won't. I promise you, you won't. The hearing was set for the following week. Delilah's lawyer, a sharp woman named Monica Grant who Callum had hired, prepared her carefully. This is theater. Don't let him rattle you. Tell the truth. Show them who you are. But Delilah was terrified. The day of the hearing, Callum sat in the gallery. He wasn't allowed to testify, but he was there. And that was enough. Dominic's lawyer went first, painted Delilah as reckless, unstable, a woman who'd involved herself in corporate espionage and put her child in danger. It was vicious, it was calculated, and it was a lie. Then it was Delilah's turn. Monica called her to the stand. Delilah walked up slowly, hands shaking. She sat, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Monica started gently. Miss Winters, can you tell the court about your relationship with your daughter? Delilah's voice was soft but steady. Zoe is my whole world. Everything I do, every choice I make, is for her. And why did you agree to work for Mr. Ashford? Because I needed a job. A stable job that would let me be home with my daughter. And when you found evidence of financial misconduct, why didn't you just walk away? Because it was wrong, and I couldn't ignore it. Even if it meant putting yourself at risk. Yes, Monica nodded. No further questions. Dominic's lawyer stood. He was a tall man with slicked back hair and a predatory smile. "Miss Winters, isn't it true that you were arrested for driving under the influence 6 years ago?" Delilah's heart pounded. "Yes, and isn't it true that your ex-boyfriend filed for emergency custody of your daughter?" He tried. The judge dismissed it. "Because it was baseless," the lawyer smirked. "Or because you got lucky." Objection. Speculation. Sustained. He continued. "You've made a lot of poor choices, haven't you, Miss Winters?" Delilah's jaw clenched. "I've made mistakes. But I've also fought to be better. For my daughter. Better. You're involved in a lawsuit that's put your face on the news. You've dragged a child into a corporate scandal." Monica stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Miss Winters didn't drag anyone into anything. She exposed a crime." The judge nodded. Sustained. "Move on, counselor." The lawyer glared. But he moved on. Eventually, it was over. The judge reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, the records, and then she spoke. "I've reviewed this case thoroughly, and I find no evidence that Miss Winters is unfit. In fact, the record shows a mother who has sacrificed greatly for her child's well-being." Mr. Hale's motion is denied. Delilah's knees nearly gave out. Monica grabbed her arm, steadying her. The judge continued. "Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. Mr. Hale is not to contact Miss Winters or her child. This case is dismissed." The gavel came down. Delilah turned. Callum was already moving toward her. She met him halfway. He wrapped his arms around her and lifted her off the ground. "You did it!" She buried her face in his shoulder. "We did it!" The months that followed were quieter, calmer. Dominic Hale was formally charged with embezzlement. The trial was set. Callum was reinstated as CEO with full board support. And Delilah was offered a permanent position, Chief Integrity Officer. It was a real title, a real salary, a real career. She accepted, not because she needed Callum, but because she wanted to build something. Together. They moved in together 6 months later, not into Callum's penthouse. That place was cold, sterile, a monument to his old life. Instead, they found a townhouse, warm, bright, with a backyard where Zoe could play. Delilah decorated. Callum cooked. They built a life, one day at a time. One morning, Callum was making pancakes. Zoe was in her high chair, covered in syrup. Delilah walked in, coffee in hand, and stopped. "What?" Callum turned, spatula in hand. "Nothing. I'm happy." She smiled. "Me too." He set the spatula down, walked over, pulled her close. "I want this forever." She looked up at him. "Me too. Then marry me." Delilah's breath caught. "What?" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, opened it. Inside was a simple ring. Elegant. Perfect. "I don't want to save you, Delilah. I don't want to rescue you. I just want to love you. Every day. For the rest of my life. Will you let me?" Tears streamed down her face. She nodded. "Yes. Yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, kissed her, and Zoe clapped. They got married 3 months later. Small ceremony. Just close friends. Zoe was the flower girl. She threw petals everywhere. It was perfect. After the wedding, they started a foundation, Second Chance Fund. It helped single parents in crisis. No questions asked, no judgment, just help. Delilah ran it. Callum funded it. And together, they changed lives. One day, Delilah received a letter. From a single mother in Ohio. She'd been about to lose her apartment. The fund had helped. She wrote, "You saved my life. I don't know how to thank you." Delilah read the letter aloud to Callum. He smiled. "You did that. You turned your pain into purpose." She looked at him. "We did that." He kissed her forehead. "Yeah, we did. If you're crying right now, you're not alone. I'm over here emotional too. If this story has touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe. Because the final chapter is going to wrap this up in the most beautiful way. 1 year later, Delilah stood in the kitchen of their home, washing bottles. Zoe was 3 now, talking in full sentences. Obsessed with dinosaurs. Callum walked in, laptop under his arm. "You're working too hard," she smiled. Says the man who answered emails at 6 a.m. Guilty. He set the laptop down, wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I have something to show you." "What?" He pulled out his phone, pulled up a photo. It was a building. Bright, modern, a sign out front. Second Chance Center. Grand opening next month. Delilah's hands flew to her mouth. "Callum, we broke ground last week. It's a resource center, childcare, job training, financial counseling, everything in one place." She turned in his arms, tears streaming. This is everything." He smiled. "You're everything." She kissed him, long, deep, grateful. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I never thought I'd have this." "Have what?" "A family, a home, a life that feels like mine." He rested his forehead against hers. "You've always had it, Delilah. You just needed someone to see it." That night, after Zoe was asleep, Delilah pulled out her phone, scrolled back, way back, to that first text. "Trevor, I know I have no right to ask, but I need help. Zoe's out of formula, and I don't get paid until Friday. Could you lend me $40? I swear I'll pay you back. Please." She smiled, showed it to Callum. He read it, smiled. "Best wrong number I ever answered." She kissed him. "Best mistake I ever made." And in that moment, in the home they'd built, with the daughter they loved and the life they'd fought for, Delilah realized something. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best chapters. Sometimes a wrong number is exactly the right call. Sometimes, when you're brave enough to ask for help, the universe sends you exactly what you need. Not a savior, a partner, not a rescue, a love story. And that, Delilah thought as she curled into Callum's arms, is the greatest miracle of all. And that, my friends, is how a broke single mom's mistake became a love story that changed 2 lives forever. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that miracles still happen, that love still exists, that hope is real, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. And subscribe to Cedar Drama, because we're just getting started. Every week, I'm bringing you stories that will make you feel, that will make you believe, and that will remind you that no matter how hard life gets, there's always a chance for something beautiful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right call.